New Zealand does not sit near the edge of the world. From the South Pacific, it is the center of its own enormous ocean. Aotearoa stretches roughly 1,500 kilometers from north to south, with two main islands, more than 700 smaller ones, and a population of about 5.3 million. Australia lies roughly 1,600 kilometers away. That distance explains the clean horizon, but also something deeper. These islands evolved alone, traded by sea, and learned to connect across difficult terrain. From subtropical headlands to alpine ice, New Zealand compresses an extraordinary range of landscapes into a narrow arc of land. This is a country built directly on a plate boundary. The Pacific Plate dives beneath the Australian Plate east of the North Island, feeding earthquakes, volcanoes, and geothermal systems. Through the South Island, the boundary becomes the Alpine Fault, where the plates slide past and press together. Uplift began shaping the Southern Alps about 15 million years ago, and the process continues. Mountains rise while rain, rivers, and glaciers tear them down. In New Zealand, geology is not a background. It determines where cities stand, how roads cross the land, and why the same journey can pass from a calm bay into an active volcanic zone. The North Island, Te Ika Maui, is warmer, more populated, and visibly volcanic. Around Rotorua, steam rises through parks, lakes occupy old calderas, and mineral-rich water records heat moving below the crust. Farther south, the peaks of Tongariro form part of an active volcanic center. To the west, Mount Taranaki rises as an almost solitary cone above green pasture and forest. Yet the island is not only fire. Long beaches, rolling hill country, Kauri forests in the north, and sheltered harbors have created many different local environments within a relatively small space. Across Cook Strait, the South Island, Te Waipounamu, changes the scale. The Southern Alps run like a spine for hundreds of kilometers, forcing moist westerly air upward. Rain falls heavily on the west coast, while the plains and inland basins to the east become far drier. Aoraki Mount Cook reaches 3,724 meters, the highest point in the country. Braided rivers spread pale sediment across broad valleys, and turquoise lakes carry fine rock flour ground by ice. This sharp west-to-east contrast shapes farming, settlement, transport, and the dramatic rhythm of the landscape seen from above. In Fiordland, mountains meet the Tasman Sea with almost no gentle transition. Ice carved deep valleys during repeated glaciations. When sea levels rose, ocean water flooded them to create the fiords. Waterfalls drop from hanging valleys after intense rain, and temperate rainforest grips slopes that appear nearly vertical. Te Waipounamu, the wider Southwest World Heritage Area, covers about 10% of New Zealand's landmass. It protects a mountains-to-sea system of fiords, glaciers, forests, lakes, and wild coast. Milford Sound is famous, but its beauty belongs to a far larger geological machine still shaped by water, uplift, and erosion. Long before modern borders, Maori understood these islands through whakapapa, navigation, and relationships with Wenua, the land. Place names are not decorative labels. They preserve journeys, ancestors, resources, and identity. Iwi and hapu connect communities to particular territories and waters, while concepts such as kaishiakatanga express responsibilities of guardianship. Aotearoa is therefore more than an alternative name on a map. It points toward a geography lived through relationships. Contemporary New Zealand carries Maori language and knowledge into public life, conservation, education, design, and the naming of mountains, rivers, cities, and national institutions. Auckland, Tamaki Makaurau, occupies a narrow isthmus between the Waitemata and Manukau harbors. Water surrounds the city, and dozens of volcanic cones punctuate its urban form. The result is not one simple center but a metropolitan landscape of peninsulas, bridges, ferries, suburbs, and island views. Rangitoto, the youngest large volcano in the Auckland field, stands at the harbor entrance as a near-perfect landmark. Auckland is the country's largest urban region and its main international gateway. Its geography makes movement complicated, but it also gives the city an identity built around sailing, migration, trade, and daily contact with the sea. Wellington, Te Whanganui-a-Tara, sits at the southern end of the North Island where hills narrow toward Cook Strait. The harbor offers shelter, but flat land is scarce, so streets and houses climb ridges around the water. The strait is a powerful gap between two large islands. Tides, currents, and winds are squeezed through it, producing some of the country's most changeable crossings. Wellington became the capital partly because of its central position between north and south. From above, the city reveals that logic clearly. Government, port, rail, road, and ferry routes all converge in a compact basin beside an active fault. Beyond the cities, productive land has made New Zealand a major food exporter. Pasture supports dairy cattle and sheep, while regional climates favor kiwifruit, apples, wine grapes, forestry, and other crops. In the year to June 2026, food and fiber export revenue was forecast at more than 64 billion New Zealand dollars, with dairy the largest category. Those numbers begin as landscapes: irrigated plains in Canterbury, green hills in Waikato, orchards around the Bay of Plenty, and vineyards in drier eastern valleys. The challenge is to keep this economy productive while reducing pressure on rivers, soils, biodiversity, and the climate. Christchurch, Aotearoa, anchors the broad Canterbury Plains east of the Southern Alps. Its flat grid, river corridors, and long views toward the mountains distinguish it from the hill-bound cities farther north. The earthquakes of 2010 and 2011 damaged the center and changed how the city thinks about buildings, infrastructure, and public space. Reconstruction has been slow, uneven, and deeply consequential, but it has also created a living laboratory for urban resilience. Christchurch is a gateway in several directions: west across the Alps, south toward the interior, and farther still to the scientific stations of Antarctica. New Zealand's long isolation produced life found nowhere else. With no native land mammals apart from bats, birds occupied ecological roles that mammals filled elsewhere. Kiwi became nocturnal, flightless forest dwellers. Ki evolved as intelligent alpine parrots, and many insects, reptiles, and plants followed their own paths. Isolation also created vulnerability. Rats, stoats, cats, dogs, and other introduced animals can devastate species that evolved without them. Conservation now operates across offshore islands, fenced sanctuaries, public land, farms, and community projects. Protecting native life here is not nostalgia. It is active repair on the scale of entire landscapes. The same mountains that define New Zealand are changing rapidly. Government environmental reporting found total glacier ice volume fell by 35% between 1978 and 2020. Research flights have documented continued long-term loss, even when an individual cool season briefly improves snow cover. Retreating ice changes rivers, ecosystems, hydropower, hazards, tourism, and cultural relationships with the mountains. At the coast, rising seas meet towns built around harbors and estuaries. New Zealand's environmental story is therefore not a choice between people and wilderness. It is a test of how agriculture, energy, transport, conservation, and settlement can adapt together. Seen from above, New Zealand is a chain of connected edges. Plate against plate, mountain against ocean, rainforest against dry plain, and ancient ecology against a rapidly changing world. Its remoteness preserved extraordinary life, but distance never meant isolation from history or global trade. Maori voyagers crossed the Pacific to settle these islands. Later shipping connected farms and ports to distant markets. Today air routes, data, science, tourism, and culture compress the ocean again. The lasting impression is not simply scenery. It is how much movement lies inside the stillness. rising mountains, shifting cities, migrating people, recovering forests, and two long islands continually remaking themselves.